Yes, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on the Football Tribe UG channel. It's another day, it's a Wednesday morning that we are coming to you live. Again, like I said, we're trying to improve on our timelines for which we do come live, to come a little earlier on in the morning to talk everything morning sport. So it's a pleasure to be back. I hope you do join us on this journey in which we are going to be speaking Liverpool, because Liverpool are making headway in the transfer window. So allow me update this in a second. Um, okay, and then we'll get the conversation going. It's good to be back. It's really, really good to be back. Allow me to test our audios here briefly in just a second, and and find out whether everything is in line or in shape or on course for us to get this conversation going. And it looks like indeed everything is set. Indeed, everything is set. Everything looks set. We're good to go. We're good to go. Waiting on you guys to join us. But as I wait for you guys to join us, I wish to say thank you, Team India. Thank you, Team Pakistan. Thank you for the love and support. Really much appreciated. Thank you to all those that have been watching our content. For those of you that have been watching that video that we did about Benjamin Sesko, why the delay, why there's been a delay in that deal, making progress, or why it's not happening as fast as Arsenal fans would have hoped it to happen. Yeah, so thank you so much for those that have been watching that video as well. Then and all the other content that we do put out, all our shorts. Thank you so much, people that have been watching our shorts. I've seen a great number of you guys, going to our short section and watching our content. Please continue with the same breadth, with the same strength, and make things stick. Anyways, without wasting any further ado, let's get the conversation going, because today we kick things off at Liverpool, because in the wee hours of the night, for those of you that were with us on the live broadcast last night, we did agree a deal for the transfer. Sorry, we did a reveal or break the news that Liverpool had agreed a deal for the transfer of Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen to Liverpool in a record transfer fee. It's a record sell for German Bundesliga team. It is a record buy for Liverpool. It is a record transfer fee for the Premier League in terms of an incoming player. So there you have it, 150 million euros for Florian Wirtz, which is the equivalent of about 126 million pounds. Now, Liverpool wanted the player. Liverpool had to beat some big teams in the race. Man City wanted the player. They asked about his valuation. They were told the valuation, 150 million euros. They deemed the deal too expensive and walked away. Bayern Munich wanted the player. They really wanted to sign him. Well, the player made his assessment and decided that he would be better off going to Liverpool, which really worked in Bayer Leverkusen's favor, because Bayer Leverkusen had preferred that he make the transfer not to a German Bundesliga opponent, but at least live away, go to outside of Germany, which is what they are getting. But also, be it as of it may, that they would have loved him to stay for another season. For another season, they were open to selling, provided it was to an external club. And for 22 years of age, he becomes the most expensive Premier League player that there is. That's Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen. Last season, he posted a tally of 10 goals and 12 assists in the German Bundesliga. I think in about 32 or 33 appearances, which is quite the equal to what he did contribute for the 2023-2024 season as they won the German Bundesliga and the German Cup. He scored 11 and provided 11 assists, a combined 22 goal contribution that he's been able to replicate for the last two seasons. That for me speaks about consistency. That for me speaks about consistency, which is why Liverpool went all in for the player. He did have talks with the Liverpool manager, that's Anna Slot, and I think, you know, of course, he pitched him his vision of where he does see him and where he wants to deploy him and how he can go on to be a great player. I think when it comes to convincing, there was not much convincing needed really, because the player decided it was Liverpool. He did travel to the UK to meet officials from Manchester City over a potential deal. He was with his parents, who it's reported that the father is the agent, and they met the Man City officials, had the talks, and did return to Germany. And in between, after that visit, that is when Liverpool threw their hat in the ring and they expressed their interest. And at the very start of this transfer saga, nobody imagined that the player would be ending up at Liverpool. Not that it was impossible, but Liverpool had not yet voiced their interest in the player. So then, sort of like in the last minute kind of a ditch, they throw their hats in the ring to say, we are interested. We want to know about the conditions of the deal. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich officials were, trying to do it all day and night, trying to convince the player that Bayern Munich or the Allianz Arena was his best next destination, but he chose Anfield in the end of it all. So that deal has gone on for quite some time. Liverpool have had two bids turned down. That's the initial bid that was in the excess of 100 million euros, and then they went back in with another offer of up to Peter Parker. Hello, bro. Good to have you back this morning. We have missed you for the last couple of days, but thank you so much for being here back with us. Yeah, it's a pleasure to see you back. It's always a pleasure to have you back. So it's a deal that Liverpool have negotiated quite for some time. Two bids turned down, the last being a total package of about 130 million euros. Bayer Leverkusen said no. They said no. The value of the player is 150 million euros, and you are 20 million euros shy of that valuation. So Liverpool went back in. That's at the point with which we did start to hear considerations that RB Leipzig were considering, including a swap deal for a player. They have names like Harvey Elliott, Jarrell Kosher, the defender, were floated around in that bird. But it looks like those rumors or those suggestions did burn out as soon as the fire had been lit. So, and then we went back to the money. And they stuck to their guns, and it looks like they are getting it their way, because according to what we did receive last night from the usual suspect, none other than Fabrizio Romano, he did say, Florian Wirtz to Liverpool, here we go. Liverpool verbally agreed a deal in principle with Bayer Leverkusen for a package reaching 150 million euros, add-ons included. Player side already agreed 2 weeks ago, with a move now imminent. Wirtz set for medical and contract signing. We do know that the player has already agreed to personal terms on a 5-year contract to be signed at Liverpool. It's being reported that he could be on very, very significant wages in the region of up to 340,000 week. 340,000 pounds per week in terms of wages. Whether that's the case remains to be seen, but at least those are some of the numbers that are being reported in regards to Florian Wirtz. So, I mean, if you bought the player at that kind of fee, it's only reasonable that in the present day, he gets to command that much of a fee. That he gets to demand those kinds of wages. And indeed, that's the reported wage. Anyways, let's look at Florian Wirtz's number, game by numbers, in as far as the German Bundesliga is concerned. So it looks like he did start out quite really young. because he made his debut in 2019-2020. That's the season where he made 7 appearances and scored 1 goal. 2020-2021, he made 29 appearances, scored 5 goals, and provided 5 assists. 0-0, high 0. Happy to have you back. Good morning. Trying to read you. Zero Requiem. How are you doing, my brother? Kindly like the broadcast, but it's a pleasure to have you. I think you seem new here. Kindly consider subscribing to the channel as well. So you can see that his numbers started to improve right from the onset. Happy Liverpool overspent for Team Checky. Okay. Oh, you are Team Ryan Checky, so you are happy that Liverpool have overspent. I mean, there's that kind of feeling among certain sections of the Premier League fan base. I won't say particularly Liverpool fans, but at least among some sections of the Premier League fan base who think that Liverpool have kind of slightly overpaid to pay 150 million euros for Florian Wirtz. Well, is his talent worth that? Of course, we do know that some of the transfer fees in this market are going to be exaggerated. And for me, I get the feeling that it does set a bit of a bad precedent for all clubs that are trying to sign players from Germany. Now, just imagine that you wanted to go to Bayern Munich and try to sign Jamal Musiala. If Florian Wirtz has just cost 150 million euros, how much do you think Bayern Munich is going to ask for Jamal Musiala? It should be a fee in a similar region or even slightly more. For teams like Chelsea that are trying to sign Jamie Gittens from Borussia Dortmund, they're going to look at that fee and say, wow, quite ridiculous, because they look at the comparison of numbers. You look at Jamie Gittens, 2 years younger than that, and Dortmund will be thinking to themselves, oh, maybe even at 65 million euros, we had asked for little, maybe quite little. If Florian Wirtz is going for 150. Again, Chelsea want to sign Hugo Ekitike from Frankfurt. Player is already valued at 100 million euros. Looks like, because Bayer Leverkusen stuck to their guns and Liverpool have agreed to pay that, then what's not to say that, Eintracht Frankfurt should stick their guns as well to that and also hold it out for 100 million euros. Then same goes for Arsenal, who are trying to sign Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig. We are being told the fee for that potential transfer is anywhere in the region of 80 to 100 million euros. What's not to say that RB Leipzig, in the wake of seeing that news, do not equally stick to their guns to say, we're not going to back down. The player is on a very good contract. He just renewed his contract last summer. So time is on our side. And if you want the player, this is what it is going to cost you, nothing less, nothing more, because practically that's what Bayer Leverkusen did to Liverpool, and Liverpool did cave. Whether we think they caved but at least Bayer Leverkusen stuck to their guns and said, this is the valuation of the player, this is what we expect, and you either pay that or you walk away. And it looks like eventually Liverpool have agreed to pay that. So it's going to be, I think, complicate things a little bit. And I think we should be looking to do maybe an expanded episode on that. But anyways, looking at his numbers still, that's for Florian Wirtz. To say that in the 2020 season, 2021, he did make 29 appearances, 5 goals, and 5 assists. That's a 10-goal contribution. The following season, which is 2021-2022, he made 24 appearances, scored 7 goals, and provided 10 assists. That's a goal contribution of 17. And then when you look at the subsequent season, 2022-2023, he made a modest 17 appearances where he scored only 1 goal and provided 6 assists. I think that's the season where he had troubles with injuries. And then, of course, the title-winning season for Bayer Leverkusen, that was 23-24. He made 32 appearances, scored 11 goals and provided 11 assists. And then last season, in 31 appearances, 12 assists and 10 goals. That's a 22-goal contribution. So those are his numbers, or the numbers he's managed to post. H Games, do you remember me? Of course, I do remember you, H Games. It's not, I think it's about your 3rd time or even 4th time being on our broadcasts. So it's a pleasure to have you back. Kindly help me click the like button on this broadcast. But thank you so much for the love and support. Really, really appreciate it. Zero, you say different for Dortmund for this mini window. Dortmund and Chelsea are in the Club World Cup, and competitors buying from Dortmund to play in the Club World Cup is not going to be cheap. Yeah, that's true. That's true, because Chelsea were really trying hard on the final day to try and sign Jamie Gittens. But what happened is that they had an initial bid in the excess of about 35 million euros turned down, and then they went back late in, because the window was closing yesterday. That's June the 10th. For those clubs that are going to be participating in the Club World Cup. Of course, the entire window closes and then reopens later. That's next week on Monday, June the 16th. So they went back in with another bid of up to 50 million euros. And while it was closer to what Dortmund were demanding for, they still deemed it slightly lower than the actual value for the player, which, according to some sources, in the region of 60 to 65 million euros. Again, they equally stuck their guns, but also I think they had it in mind that the player is really going to be useful to them in the FIFA Club World Cup. So they wouldn't ideally want to lose him at this time. But they will be more open to losing him after the tournament is done. Remember, the player has already agreed to terms with Chelsea on a 7-year contract. So, I mean, that was already there. So I do agree with you on that front, Zero, that indeed maybe Borussia Dortmund didn't want really to sell. H Games says, "Hi, I'm so hyped for the transfer. It's crazy. I'm a huge Liverpool fan. Congratulations to you, Huge Games. Like we said, that the deal for Florian Wirtz is over the line. We spoke about it last night. For those of you that were part of us, our broadcast late in the night, we did come on about around 10:30 or 10. No, I think around 10:45 p.m. That's when we kicked the broadcast off, and we're on for about an hour. But it's a pleasure to have you. So Liverpool, Florian Wirtz becomes Liverpool's second signing of the transfer window, because they have already landed Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen for 35 million euros. Now, if you're Bayer Leverkusen, you must be really happy, because you're milking 185 million euros from Liverpool, because the 35 million euros, yes, that was a release clause, so that's guaranteed full, nothing to do with add-ons. And then, even though it will be paid over a course of 3 years, which is in 3 different installments, good negotiating work there for Liverpool. And then you're getting 150 million quid, from the same side for Florian Wirtz. And then, of course, it goes back, and then Liverpool are also edging closer to signing Milos Kakes from AFC Bournemouth in a deal that will be believed to be in the region of 40 million pounds for the 21-year-old Hungarian left back. So Liverpool are moving fast. It was Sir Alex Ferguson who said that when you're at your best, that's when you should look to strengthen. That's when you should look to improve. And Liverpool are doing just that. They are the Premier League champions. We thought they had a very decent squad. In any case, if we thought they had anything to patch up in that squad, was that they needed a holding midfielder. And that's why they had tried to sign Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad, although the player eventually turned them down last summer. While that deal did not happen, they sort of counted their losses and moved on. They signed Mamadashvili, the goalkeeper from Valencia, and left him out there on loan, on a season-long loan, and then signed Federico Chiesa as the only player to have joined them last summer, who spent almost the better part of the season injured, only made a number of appearances just to qualify him to receive the Premier League medal, a winner's medal, and that kind of thing. But so they stuck with the players that they had. Wataru Endo, putting Ryan Gravenberch in the deep lying role, even though we all know that he prefers to play as a number 8. So, and they did well. They won the Premier League title comfortably well, with 10 points ahead of the second place Arsenal, with a tally of 84 points, as compared to Arsenal's 74 points. So, while we think they are a very strong team, and do not forget, in the UEFA Champions League, at the group stage level, during the league format, they were arguably the best team in the competition. I think they won, 7 out of their 8 games. So they were the best team in Europe. They finished top of that table. And while they may have crashed out of the UEFA Champions League at the round of 16, at the hands of PSG. PSG turned out to be the eventual champions. So you really sort of, in that context, do understand that they lost to a worthy opponent, really, in essence. But they are looking at themselves and saying, where do we need to improve? Yes, we've not done a great deal of business in maybe the last 2-3 transfer windows. Now is the time to improve our team. And they are going all big. They're going for Florian Wirtz, Milos Kakes, Jeremy Frimpong. We do know they want to sign a centre back. We do know they are interested in signing Hugo Ekitike as their preferred choice for a striker, because they do expect Darwin Nunes to leave the club. They want to move him on. They think he has fallen short in terms of general goal contribution, in terms of their own expectations, although they signed him quite expensively from Benfica. Zero comes back to say not to dampen your spirits. H Games, the money spent on Florian Wirtz is going to be spent by Erik ten Hag. Is going to be spent by Erik ten Hag on Manchester United players and help United rebuild. Wow, that's a very good analogy, Zero. That's a very good analogy. Now, for those of you that are not aware, let me give you a little bit of context. So, at the end, prior to the end of last season, Xabi Alonso announced that he would be leaving Bayer Leverkusen after a period of 3 years, having joined them back in October 2022. And then guided them to a 6th place finish when he only found them, I think, just 2 places above relegation. So then won them the subsequent season, the league title and the German Bundesliga Cup, and also they reached the finals of the UEFA Europa League and lost out to Atlanta by 3-0 at the Mola Lokman scoring a hat-trick in that final. Then last season, he guided them to a 2nd place finish, on the table. So when he announced his departure, and of course we all know he's ended up at Real Madrid as the head coach there, with Carlo Ancelotti exiting to go to the Brazil national team as the head coach on that side. So Bayer Leverkusen went in the market to search for a manager, and their preferred choice or preferred number 1 candidate was Francesc Sola Fabregas, the former Barcelona, Arsenal, and Chelsea midfielder who also did play for Como there before his eventual retirement. He does have shares in Como, and he was their manager last season after earning promotion to the Italian Serie A, and he guided them to a 10th place finish as something that was remotely unexpected. It was really, really quite impressive. I think they finished with what? With about 49 points or so. But it was really, really good, because when they got into the season, their objective was not to get relegated. That was the objective. But they went on to finish as high as 10th. And so Bayer Leverkusen looked over to say, that's the manager we would want, Cesc Fabregas. But by the time Bayer Leverkusen came in, the Red Bull group had already inquired about his availability. That's with Jurgen Klopp being their head of football at the group. They had already made inquiries, and Como turned them, and he turned down that offer. So he also declined the offer from Bayer Leverkusen, and that's how Bayer Leverkusen ended up hiring Erik ten Hag, the former Manchester United and ex-Ajax manager, as their new boss on a 2-year contract. So as soon as he signed that 2-year contract, of course, he's going to be in the market to try and sign players. They've lost players. He's going to be looking for a right back. They've lost Jeremy Frimpong. He's going to be looking for centre back. They've lost Jonathan Tah to Bayern Munich, who left on a free transfer. But Bayern Munich have had to pay Bayer Leverkusen a fee in the region of 850,000 euros to allow Jonathan Tah be part of Bayern Munich's squad for the FIFA Club World Cup. So now that it is Erik ten Hag in charge, as soon as that deal was done, we started hearing speculation of him being interested in some Man United players. And guess who was first on that list? It was Anthony. It was Anthony. So really, and really, to be honest with you, Anthony had a very good season. We all know first season, half of the season was pretty horrible. He wasn't happy at Manchester United. He's spoken about this widely. He broke down in tears saying he was not happy. Things were not happening for him. And then he went to Real Betis on loan under the charges of Manuel Pellegrini. Remember, they even reached the finals of the UEFA Conference League and lost out to Chelsea by 4-1. Quite an embarrassing result, to say the least. But take nothing away from them. During that spell of about 4 months, he scored what? He scored 9 goals and provided 5 assists. That's quite impressive. A goal contribution, really, for a player that we thought was frozen out at United, basically. Not frozen out because he used to make Ruben Amorim's matchday squad in almost all games but one. But again, things weren't really happening for him. So now that Erik ten Hag is at Bayer Leverkusen, that's what Zero is trying to allude to, that do not, to dampen H Game's spirit, who is a Liverpool fan, is that Erik ten Hag is going to come and use that money to buy Manchester United players, and then the money ends back at Man United, and it helps Man United rebuild. H Games comes back to say, FR, I did not understand that analogy. I did not understand what that question was, but but yeah, that pretty much is a possibility. And by the way, the other player that has been linked with a potential move to Bayer Leverkusen in the wake of Erik ten Hag's appointment is none other than Alejandro Garnacho, who Ruben Amorim apparently has already told to find a new club where he will be playing his football. Zero says, for real? Okay. Apologies. My knowledge when it comes to these short forms is a little lacking, I must be honest. I do remember how I struggled to know the IKR. I know, right? Anyway, but good. So you can see that there's a trend, and just like Zero puts it, already, Anthony, 25 years of age, is being linked with a potential move to Bayer Leverkusen. Suddenly, there are rumors of Alejandro Garnacho, who other Premier League clubs have inquired about, including Chelsea. Arsenal have been mentioned in recent weeks, and we do know that the player is valued at about 50 to maybe 60 million euros for a player that is only turning 21. Has he turned 21, maybe, or soon? It would be quite maybe a good deal. Now, Alejandro Garnacho is not a bad player. I think there is a very, very good player in there. What he needs to work on is his maybe personal discipline in some way or form. But again, those things you do expect, they do come with players of that age. You say, I can see Jamikal, football head looking, okay, whatever that means. But thank you, Jamikal, for being with us. Kindly like the broadcast, but thank you for joining us. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel and support what I do and help me on this path to growth. Anyways, so when you look at those profiles, we are speaking about Alejandro Garnacho. It comes with players of that age. Sometimes not all of them mature at the same pace in terms of the kind of things they do. You look back at that Jadon Sancho situation with Erik ten Hag. He could have handled that much better as a player, really, if he had maybe the right guidance, but also sometimes players do go against the guidance that they do receive. So you get the feeling that, for me, Alejandro Garnacho, there is a very, very good player in there. Napoli in January were interested. I'm not sure they will be coming back in for him, but that will depend on the resources at their disposal. But Napoli are busy concluding a deal for Kevin De Bruyne. They want to bring in Jonathan David, all on a free transfer. They did agree a fee for a midfielder from AC Milan. I need to remember the name, but they're looking to, get things done, really to strengthen. But Man United are looking to clean their house. So it does sort of feed into what Zero submitted, that Liverpool money could as well as end up at Manchester United to help Liverpool's rivals do their rebuild. So yes, the player I was looking for is Yunus Musa. Yes, Napoli and AC Milan, they are in contact to get that deal done for Yunus Musa. That's for the holding midfielder. What are your thoughts about why only Manchester United are looking at jokers, but no bigger clubs like Arsenal? Is jokers the next Nunes? A very, very beautiful question, by the way, as Zero there. It's been a debate that has been ongoing for quite some time in the different circles, depending on where you tap your information from. But my opinion is this. For all the big clubs that are considering Victor Gyökeres, they're not considering him as the #1 target. So he is part of their lists, but he's like the second choice. He's like the opportunity cost, second best choice when when choice has been made. So let's to give it a little bit of context in that very respect is when you look at clubs like Liverpool, like Arsenal, their number one target for a striker going into the summer was Newcastle's Alexander Isak. But it became apparent, I think, soon enough, that a deal for Alexander Isak was going to be too expensive for any of them to pull off. And then, to make matters worse, Newcastle went on to qualify for the UEFA Champions League, which meant that now they have UEFA Champions League football, in which those kinds of players want to play in. So it becomes enticing, but it also means they get to earn more revenues and they can give these players extra bonuses and even put him on higher wages. In fact, there were reports at the tail end of last season that Newcastle were considering on extending Alexander Isak's contract that already has 3 years left to it. So when it became apparent that that deal was going to be too hard, they all went to their second choice, options. Arsenal moved moved for Benjamin Sesko. Liverpool are in seriously for Hugo Ekitike, who is also a priority for Chelsea. And then when you look at teams like Juventus, who have inquired about, again, Victor Gyökeres, their number one target in this window is Victor Osimhen. You get. And then Chelsea have also mentioned the conversation, have also been involved in the conversation for Victor Gyökeres, but Hugo Ekitike is their number one priority. And then Benjamin Sesko is also in there. So with that sort of background, it indeed does beg the question why big teams are not it does indeed beg the question why big teams are not prioritizing Victor Gyökeres, who, at least by any measure of reports, it's believed that he could be the cheaper option out of the likes of Hugo Ekitike, Benjamin Sesko, and maybe all the others. The issue with Victor Osimhen has largely something to do with his wage demands and that kind of thing. And that's why some clubs have stayed away from it. But from the tactical point of view or the analytical point of view is that when you see him play, he plays with a lot of energy, the kind of energy of, maybe Didier Drogba, just for a remote comparison, not like the same players, but with that kind of energy of pushing around players, and being better, beating the defenders. And then the argument is that he's been facing maybe slightly weaker built defenders in the Portuguese league. And then also when you watch him play, he tends to make his runs from the left going into the center. And this goes back to playing models of the different clubs. When you look at Arsenal, the way they build their game, of course, from the back, they want to dominate the midfield with Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice making the run in the final third to make the complete five in the attacking phase, where you have the front three of either Martinelli, Saka, and maybe Kai Havertz as your striker, and then Martin Odegaard is coming at the back with them, and then suddenly Declan Rice also makes the run in. Now, when they look at that shape, if you have a striker like Victor Gyökeres, who is going to be running from the left side, which is Martinelli's side, where he does play in these inverted roles. I know some people tend to get these things mixed because modern football, a left winger does not play on the left the way we had traditional number 11s and number 7s. Things are inverted. If you're left-footed, you play on the right wing, and if you're right-footed, you play on the left wing, in that kind of sense. So he makes his run from the left wing. And I think in the analysis of some of these teams, it's sort of, when they look at their overall play, they feel that that kind of model does not suit them, the way he plays. And yet when you sign a player like Victor Gyökeres, if you want to get the best out of him, you have to play to his strength. The other example is, you remember how when Manchester City signed about Erling Haaland, we all know Pep Guardiola, he's played with most of his teams not liking that number 9, traditional number 9. Yes, he did play with Samuel Eto'o for his first season. That was in 2008-2009 with Barcelona, when they went on to win the treble, the UEFA Champions League, beating United in that final by 2-0. The following season, he saw him out. He 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 forced him out, and that's how he ended up at Inter Milan. And then Barcelona, in return, got Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who had asked to leave Inter Milan. And then when he came to Manchester City, he found Sergio Aguero, very good striker. But while he played with him, you saw how quickly he changed things. He brought in a player like Gabriel Jesus, who is a dynamic player, can play across the entire front three. How many times have we seen him play with the false nine? Sometimes not going with anybody that is remotely a striker. Play with, Phil Foden at the tip of it. Sometimes send Omar Mamouche. We've seen that last season in the absence of Erling Haaland. But when they brought in Erling Haaland, they changed their playing style, their playing model to suit Erling Haaland to get the best out of him. So I think majority of these big teams look at it in a similar breadth, that if we do sign a player like Victor Gyökeres, for us to get the best out of him, we ought to change the way we play and then play to his strength. So if he's going to make runs coming off the left wing and then make the run into the box, then how do we pick our game to either eliminate this second winger like Martinelli, or how does he then make the run maybe to create space for Gyökeres to be comfortable in that squad? Because then that means Martinelli has to run a bit inwards in midfield to sort of drag away attention from the defenders and then allow Victor Gyökeres run in from the left. And then the other thing is to do with some of his goals have been penalties, but that's not really a sticking point. But a good number of them have been penalties, to be honest. So when you're looking at his numbers, then the Portuguese league in itself being a weaker league. And then the other thing is that when you look at some of the players that have made the switch from the Portuguese league to the Premier League, not many forwards have really been successful. To the best of my recent memory, we can look at the examples of Cristiano Ronaldo, who was one of those successful ones. We can look at the likes of Bruno Fernandes. He's been successful. But how many times have you had Manchester United fans or pundits ask, where is Bruno Fernandes best suited to play? Because every time he's been played as a number 8, he's not thrived. But when he plays as a 10, that's where it sort of suits him, maybe as in a kind of a free role. And yet, when you put him in a very structured system that is stickler to a certain shape, he tends to underperform in some way. So, but overall, he's been a success. So you look at players like Darwin Núñez, signed quite expensively, and they've not really worked out. You go back to João Felix, who was signed quite expensively from Benfica to Atletico Madrid, and his career has sort of taken a nosedive ever since he joined at Atletico Madrid. People forget he's only 25 years of age, by the way, and recently signed to Chelsea, played for only half of the season for them. He was doing fairly well in the UEFA Conference League, but they loaned him out to AC Milan, where I think in about 15 or 17 appearances, could only manage to score 2 goals. So overall, I think based on those assessments, Arsenal went to FC Porto and signed Fabio Vieira. 2 seasons in, it looked like it was not working because physically, I thought the player was lacking, and then he does not have the skill set of a Mesut Ozil to say, yes, I'm lacking physically, but when it comes to intricate play, I'm going to get the better of you. It wasn't working out. They sent him back on loan, and he's had a very good loan spell at FC Porto. Whether they look forward to keeping him permanently or they look to sell him remains to be seen, but I think their best decision will be to sell him. So I think clubs are making assessments over the overall success of different players that have come from the Portuguese league and say, given that it is largely considered a weaker league in comparison to Europe's top 5, what is the rate of success of players that have come from there? For the amount of money Liverpool paid to sign Darwin Núñez, the expectation would be that he would be hitting at the kinds of numbers that Alexander Isak has been hitting at Newcastle. When you look at Alexander Isak's statistics, of course, they've been improving ever since he joined them. But last season alone, he had a 29-goal contribution with 23 goals and I think about 6 assists. So when you look at his numbers, in 2023, he joined them in 2022, when he when he signed, he had 22 league appearances. He scored 10 goals and provided 1 assist. And then the following season, that was 2023-2024, 30 appearances, 21 goals, and 2 assists. So you can see a very significant improvement in his goal scoring from 10 to 21 the following season. And then last season, he posted his best numbers, 23 goals and 6 assists, a 29 goal contribution. So when you look at that, that Alexander Isak performance and compare it to the performance of Darwin Núñez by numbers ever since he joined Liverpool, you do not get the same encouragement that that he's going to post for you the numbers. Again, let's go back to Darwin Núñez, 2022-2023 season, 29 appearances and 9 goals and 3 assists. 2023-2024, 36 appearances, 11 goals, and 8 assists. That was arguably his best season, an overall goal contribution of 90, with the first season being an overall contribution of 12. So there was an improvement. Then you look back at last season, he only scored 5 goals and provided 2 assists. Now, that in itself has partly to do with the amount of game time he's obviously accorded, because last season, but one, Jurgen Klopp gave him more time as compared to, I think, what Arne Slot has given him, 36 games played in comparison to last season is 30. But nonetheless, for a prime striker who you paid for a fee in the excess of 85 million euros, you should be getting more. You should be showing signs of progress. You should be averaging at least 15 goals in a Premier League season, and then to combine with the contribution of all the others. When you're playing with a player like Mohamed Salah, who posted 18 assists, that's a player creating chances, loads of chances. When you're playing with fullbacks like Robertson and Alexander Trent-Arnold, never mind that he's left now, you're expected to score more goals because these are players that create loads of chances. And you're playing with Luis Diaz or Gakpo or Diego Jota. I mean, these are players that oftentimes create loads of chances. So he's not hit those numbers. And I think when these big teams sit with their analysts or their analytics departments to look at the success of some of these players from Portugal, some clubs are saying, yes, he's a very good player. He is in his prime. He's scoring the goals. But should he be our number one bet? Because let's be honest, all transfers are a gamble. You bet on a player that, yes, he will make the transfer from this league and come, whether expensively or not, it's a bet. It's a huge gamble to say, let's bet on him to succeed. Sometimes they do not succeed. I'll give you an example. Look back at Fernando Torres. He was hitting all the good numbers at Liverpool. He went to Chelsea. He did not post those numbers. And yet it was the same league. But again, that I think speaks more to Chelsea's playing model at the time as opposed to Liverpool's model, where he was everything. And yet when he went to Chelsea, you had the likes of Frank Lampard, who were literally hungry for goals, And you still had the Didier Drogba in that team that went on to win, of course, the UEFA Champions League in 2012. Then the other example that I normally refer to is Claudio Pizarro when he was leaving, I think, Bayern Munich to join Chelsea back in 2007. Around that time, yes, around 2007 or 2006, around that time, he was really putting in the shift there in the German Bundesliga. He was scoring the goals, but he came to the Premier League and it just didn't work out. It just did not work out. So he ended up going back on loan to Werder Bremen, and then Werder Bremen eventually signed him permanently. And then later from Werder Bremen, he returned to Bayern Munich at some stage of his career. Anyways, so with all that in sort of context, with all those considerations, when they look at the analytics, maybe these big teams are saying, maybe not quite right. He's not quite suited to our playing style, and it may cause us to change so many things if we are to play to his advantage and make the best out of him, and that kind of thing. So that's why I think bigger teams are sort of taking a bit of a backseat. And then the other example, and now, why yesterday I was speaking about still, Victor Gyökeres, and I was saying that there are higher chances he ends up at Manchester United than anywhere else. And the reason for that is because the manager in Ruben Amorim knows him too well. He's already planning to play the same system that he was playing at Sporting Lisbon, which if he came to Manchester United could, maybe suit him and he could get the goals fired. But even with that in mind, former players like Rio Ferdinand, who says he did watch him about 3 times, really, really watching him intently, and he doesn't think that Premier League defenders are going to accord him the kind of space and physical advantage that he's had in the Portuguese league, and he doesn't think that he is the striker to cut it for Manchester United. Now, that's Rio Ferdinand giving you that word. Yes, he could be wrong, but he could be right in his own assessment. But he doesn't believe that he should be the primary target for Manchester United for a prime striker. Yes, they lost out on Liam Delap. Personally, I didn't think that they deserve to sign Liam Delap for the age profile that he is of, only 22 years of age. And yet you already have Rasmus Højlund, 22 years of age. You have Joshua Zirkzee, just turned 24, still 23, thereabout. So for me, that's it. Of course, what some of these teams look at potentially in the conversation for Victor Gyökeres is the fact that he's played in England before with Coventry for 2 full seasons, and in his first full season he scored 18 goals, and then the subsequent season I think he scored 23 goals, but that was in the Championship. So that's one of the things that are sort of going well for him. But that's my submission on that. Zero, you come back to say, I feel Liverpool is being too nice. They sell their players at cut price discounts and respect their rivals so much. If I were Liverpool, I will be trying to buy Saka and Rice. That is retaining the league ban style. Well, again, when you compare it to Bayern Munich, Bayern Munich are the richest club in German football. So usually they have all the resources. That's why over the years, they look around the German Bundesliga and go signing every player in their prime. You remember the time when they, invaded Borussia Dortmund, signed the likes of Robert Lewandowski, signed Mario Götze, eventually signed Mats Hummels. So they're that kind of team. Every time there's a very good player, young or old, at some of those teams, they are looking to sign him. They've just signed Jonathan Tah from Bayer Leverkusen as a free agent. They did want to sign Florian Wirtz, the other best player in that sense. So, whereas Liverpool have not been of that model. Yes, they've signed some Premier League players and good Premier League players. We can look back to the examples of Andy Carroll from Newcastle, signed quite expensively. You can look back at Robbie Keane. I think Robbie Keane was signed by, was it Ken Dalglish at the time, or Roy Hodgson? I stand to be corrected on that, but they did sign him from Tottenham Hotspur at some point. Then they did sign Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain from Arsenal for £35 million during Jurgen Klopp's era. But overall, Liverpool have always looked more on the outside to try and sign players. Maybe even Gini Wijnaldum, I think he joined them from Newcastle. But overall, they've always looked to sign players from the outside. The likes of Divock Origi, Jadon Sancho had played in the Premier League before, but maybe Jordan Henderson was from the Premier League. Virgil van Dijk was from the Premier League at Southampton. Sadio Mane was from the Premier League at Southampton. But then, I think apart from Virgil van Dijk, all the other players were not in their prime as the way we are trying to compare it. And they were not players that were really, really hitting those high numbers that you are saying, oh, Liverpool is signing a number of player to 1, 2, 3 to go and win the Premier League. The marquee signing amongst all those was Virgil van Dijk, who they signed for £75 million at the time. But overall, I do not know whether it's not their model or they find it will be too expensive. I think partly it will be too expensive for them. Just imagine you went to Arsenal and said you want to sign Bukayo Saka. The first word you will get is not for sale. But if they were to entertain any bid whatsoever, it would have to be a very, very significant fee. It would be quite very expensive. I know you must have had something like this, an English player tax or a Premier League player tax. Usually, when a Premier League player comes, when a Premier League team comes to sign a player from a fellow Premier League side, they're going to come expensive. You've just seen the example of Moises Caicedo from Brighton to Chelsea. You could argue that Chelsea people could have negotiated maybe slightly better, but I mean that fee in the region of up to 115 million pounds. You know, and then we did see one of the other deals was Romeo Lavia, but Romeo Lavia was average at 50 million pounds is an okay thing. But usually when you go in for a Premier League player, they use usually that kind of a figure that is high beyond the valuation. And the other example I can give you is, for example, usually when players have release clauses, if a player is going to be sold to clubs outside the Premier League, then there is going to February. Hi, my brother. Good to have you back. February is one of our fans that joined us in recent times. Good to have you. It's a pleasure to be with you. Kindly like the broadcast and welcome back to the channel once again. So, for example, when they insert release clauses, they will say, if we are selling to a Premier League club, the player will cost maybe 70 million pounds. But if it is outside of the Premier League, then the player will go for 50 million pounds. Why? Because they know Premier League clubs have the buying power. One, two, they're selling to their league rivals. So I think Liverpool also look at it in that sense. Look at Milos Kerkez. If let's say a team like Bayern Munich or a team like Bayer Leverkusen or a team like maybe Olympique Marseille, I suspect maybe a Juventus came to, or even a Barcelona came to sign Milos Kerkez from AFC Bournemouth, maybe they could be willing to part with him for a fee of about 35 million pounds. But because it is Liverpool, they're saying it's 40 to 45. So there is also usually that bit of context that usually Premier League players are quite expensive. The other example I can give you is that Aston Villa signed Morgan Rogers, I think in February 2024, yes, for Middlesbrough, for a fee that is reported to be anywhere between 8 to 15 million pounds. Present day, because he's an English player, 22 years of age, quite young, they're saying his value is in the region of 70 to 90 million pounds. That's quite high for a player that has only played a season and a half. Yes, last season his numbers were good, scored 8 goals and provided 10 assists in about 37 league appearances. Those numbers are really good, but has he done it consistently for maybe 3 seasons to say, yeah, that's a player? He's now 25, he's in his prime, maybe 24 years of age. He's been posting the numbers, they have been improving. So there's that, but that's quite the spike in terms of player valuation from 15 million pounds to 70 to 90, where it is being reported. But it becomes that because he is an English player, and it's that fee is quoted for those inquiring if they are Premier League teams. And that's why I think Liverpool are not looking to deploy the Bayern Munich model, where they look more inwards in terms of buying players from the Premier League as opposed to going elsewhere. But they have had considerations, actually many considerations for Premier League players. I've given the example of Alexander Isak, then Milos Kerkez, what they're trying to sign. They're looking for a centre back. Let's wait and see where they point their fingers and that kind of thing. Of course, for the goalkeeper, they went out of the Premier League and signed Mamadashvili there from Valencia. Then you did come back to submit, and then maybe Declan Rice again. When Arsenal were signing Declan Rice 2 seasons ago from West Ham United, it cost them 105 million pounds. That's 100 million pounds guaranteed fees and 5 unexpected add-ons. Quite expensive because it's a Premier League to Premier League player sell. You know, it's from West Ham to Arsenal. There's a bit of rivalry there. That's why the player becomes expensive. You know, so that also is considered in that respect. Then you come back to say that is retaining the league Bayern style. Yeah, indeed, Bayern style work to retain the league. That's what they work towards too. Then you also come back to say Chelsea tried when they got Torres, Fabregas, almost got Gerrard. I admire that kind of ruthlessness that Liverpool seem to lack. Yeah, but remember, for Chelsea to get Fabregas, Arsenal had the first refusal when he was returning to the Premier League from Barcelona. Arsenal had first refusal. So Arsene Wenger decided, says Fabregas, I love you as a player, but I'm not taking you back. I'm not taking you back. And because of that, he eventually ended up at Chelsea under Jose Mourinho. And then Fernando Torres, yes, he was a January signing for about 50 million pounds. That was, really going in for the goods, poking your opponents. I mean, Manchester United did it. Sir Alex Ferguson went to Arsenal and poked out Robin van Persie because he needed a striker in their prime, and he got the job done. Won them that league title of 2012-2013 as Sir Alex Ferguson bid Old Trafford farewell. And then you go back to even Arsenal themselves when they were looking to sort of strengthen their side and bring in some bit of experience. Look at majority of Mikel Arteta's signings when he was building his team. He went for Aaron Ramsdale from the Premier League. Never mind that he had been relegated, but he went for Premier League player Ramsdale. He went for Benjamin White from Brighton and Hove Albion. Eventually he went for Zinchenko from Manchester City and Gabriel Jesus. And in the aftermath of those two signings, I remember hearing comments that Man City had decided not to sell any more players to Arsenal because the Arsenal then re-derived them for the title because they signed from within. Then Declan Rice is the other player that joined from within the Premier League. So, and then let's ignore the ones that have not worked out. Then you had, when they wanted an improvement for a goalkeeper, they went to Brentford and got David Raya. So they've looked inwards for those kinds of signings. But also, and even when they needed a striker, their number one top priority was Alexander Isak. They needed to look inwards because Mikel Arteta wants Premier League proven players. One of the players that they've been interested in signing is Bryan Mbeumo from Brentford, although the player has chosen to say, my preference would be to join Manchester United, but they really had some serious interest in there. So I do understand that school of thought, and some of these clubs have really, really explored that model, although that model oftentimes is a little bit too expensive. Again, Chelsea have done it with Pedro Neto, with Moises Caicedo, with Cole Palmer, with Robert Sanchez, for most of those players. They did it when they were signing Ben Chilwell from West Ham United, when they were signing Wesley Fofana from Leicester City for about 75 million pounds, thereabout. So the Premier League clubs have tried to do it, especially the big clubs. They've really tried to do it, but it's a venture that is oftentimes too expensive for them to explore. And guess what? Usually mid-table teams are trying to use that to their advantage. That's why they are going out there, getting these unknown players and bringing them, make them good players, and then want to sell to the bigger teams in the Premier League. Brighton is trying to use that model. Present day, they did buy, what's his name? João Pedro for about 30 million pounds, arguably one of their most expensive buys. And now Newcastle are interested, and they're saying, I would want about 50 to 70 million pounds. Because it's Newcastle asking. They have the Saudi money. And then away from that, they do have the other example that you can look at is still with Brighton selling Moises Caicedo. Today, their team's interested in signing Carlos Baleba. Manchester United is one of those because they are looking for that player in the midfield. While I think Manchester United could use a holding midfielder, I think they need a number 8 more. For the traditional kind of number 8. I usually use the example of Yuri Tillemans at Aston Villa. That's the kind of player that Manchester United do need in that midfield, because I think either Casemiro or Manuel Ugarte can do the dirty work, the donkey work of winning the ball back. But once they win the ball back, once they play a team that allows them to have majority of possession, do they have the kind of player that can hold that ball, dictate the tempo of the game, decide how the game progresses or slows down the pace and that kind of thing? I feel that's what they kind of need. So, and then I think that really answers your submission. They almost got Steven Gerrard, almost, but I think Steven Gerrard was eventually too loyal to Liverpool, because even clubs like Real Madrid had come in for him. They had wanted to sign him, but he eventually decided to stay. But this has been a very, very beautiful conversation, Zero. I hope you've done us the absolute favor and subscribe to the channel. But it's been a very, very wonderful debate. Thanks to your input and your feedback. So that's the gist of it, guys. That's the debate. If there's anything you want us to discuss further, do not hesitate to put it down in the comment section. But for now, let's run through the transfer gossip as of this morning. We've talked about, all the. Yesterday we spoke about Martin Zubimendi. I do not think I need to repeat that. But Arsenal did agree to pay more, £4 million in excess of his £51 million release clause, because they want to pay his transfer fees in installments. We spoke about that. According to David Ornstein of The Athletic, he says Arsenal consider that a done deal, and they are waiting for the player to be part of their pre-season tour. But also because that apparently Real Sociedad requested that Arsenal conclude the deal in July to allow Real Sociedad post that a transaction as part of their new financial year, as opposed to this current financial year. Then, again, this is the very report I was alluding to, that Arsenal have agreed a fee of £59 million. I think this is exaggerated, but some reports do say £55 million. So with Real Sociedad for Spanish midfielder Martin Zubimendi, with the move to be completed after July 1st, to help with meeting of financial fair play regulations. So UEFA's financial fair play regulations are sort of determining how fast or how slow teams are doing business. They are having the conversations, and because of those things in mind, the profit and sustainability rules in the Premier League, the UEFA financial fair play rules, with that in mind, so teams look at their books, accountants look at their things and say, okay, we are okay doing this transaction, but do you mind waiting until this date so that we can record it as a transaction made within this period for the health of our finances and that kind of thing. So I hope you guys do understand. Then Manchester United are evaluating an offer for Napoli's Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen, 26, using Netherlands forward Joshua Zirkzee, 24, as part of a deal. That is according to Gazzetta dello Sport. Now, if Manchester United were to get Victor Osimhen, trust me, guys, that will be an absolute game changer for them. Then RB Leipzig's 22-year-old Slovenian striker Benjamin Sesko, a reported target for Arsenal, rejected a move to Saudi Arabian club Al Hilal before Tuesday's transfer deadline. Yes, two Saudi Pro League clubs had come in to try and sign Benjamin Sesko, but again, like I said before, that I would really, really be surprised if he chose to go to Saudi Arabia, bearing in mind that last summer he decided to stay with RB Leipzig to continue with his development at RB Leipzig, choosing not to make the transfer to Arsenal at the time, who are really, really interested in signing him. Then Leipzig are holding firm on receiving a full release clause for Sesko, now understood to be more than £65 million. Again, that's according to the Independent. That's why I keep saying these negotiations are usually not simple. Sometimes clubs fail to agree on a matter as such of how much is paid in the first installment. I'll give you an example. For example, let's say you're buying a player worth £80 million, and you agree that the player is worth that's what you're going to pay, but also it's going to be paid in installments. And then the selling player insists that the first installment has to be at least £40 million, and then the other 40 will come in two other installments. And yet the buying club is saying we can only pay you £30 million for the first installment, and then we'll pay another 25 and another 25, or another 20 and 10. So that can be a point of departure in a transfer deal, because again, finances are a tricky thing for some of these clubs, because there's a lot of consideration that goes in. The reason as to why they do not want to spend to pay you a huge sum up front is because they have other transfer targets to go and pay for. For example, if you're Arsenal and you're going to pay that amount of money, you have some money to pay for Zodi Mendy. You're trying to sign a left and right winger, respectively. You're trying to sign. At this stage, you're not sure if Thomas Partey is going to sign a new contract. Should he decide to leave, that means you have to throw your hat in the ring and try and find a replacement for him. That means spending more money. So if you have spent all the money on these other players, then it leaves you sort of kind of bare or vulnerable in your transfer business. So that's why that needs to be put into consideration. Then the other is Hungarian left back Milos Kakes. We've spoken about him. He's on the verge of a £45 million move to Liverpool after Bournemouth agreed a deal to sign French left back Adrian Trafford, 23 years from state rents. Yes, that's according to the Telegraph. FC Bournemouth have already found a replacement for Milos Kakes, and that is Adrian Trafford. And so that's why I did say that Liverpool will very soon complete the deal for Milos Kakes. Then Gianluigi Donnarumma wants to stay at Paris Saint-Germain despite Manchester United and Inter Milan inquiring about the Italian goalkeeper's availability. That's according to ESPN, while Brighton will accept a bid of about 50 to 60 million pounds for 23-year-old Brazilian forward João Pedro, who is a target for Newcastle. That's according to Football Insider, while Chelsea are open to offers of Benoit Badiashile, the 24-year-old. Hi, February. How are you doing, my brother? Thank you for the love and support. So Chelsea are willing to listen for offers for Benoit Badiashile and Axel Disasi, 24 and 27 years of age, respectively. I do not think Aston Villa would be interested in keeping Axel Disasi, but you can never say never. Then Inter Milan are keen on signing 21-year-old Paraguay midfielder Julio Enciso from Brighton this summer. A very good player, Julio Enciso. And then Al Hilal's bid to sign French midfielder N'Golo Kante, 34 years of age, on a short-term deal from Saudi's rivals Al Ittihad for the Club World Cup could collapse because of a fan backlash. So, yes, there was a last-minute gossip for Al Hilal to make a marquee signing, and they had reached out to their rivals in Al Ittihad to try and sign N'Golo Kante, for their squad in the FIFA Club World Cup. They wanted to sign him on a short-term contract of about maybe 1.5 months or two to be part of the tournament, but that deal looks like did not really go down well. But we'll give you final word before, and then what else? What other deal have we not talked about? Of course, there are offers from Galatasaray for Leroy Sané, and understand Galatasaray are now optimistic and confident to get Leroy Sané deal done. Galatasaray board and president now confident to get the green light from Leroy Sané and bring him to the club. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. Now, I am sad you're not reading my comments. I've been reading your comments February. Really? I've been reading your comments. Now, Leroy Sané has a contract offer on table from Bayern Munich, but the two parties are yet to agree on the whole overall structure of that contract. And he's received offers from the Saudi Pro League. He's received an offer from Galatasaray. There have been inquiries from Fenerbahce. In fact, Fenerbahce sent him an offer in which, in the region of 10 to 12 million euros in net pay wages. Then Tottenham Hotspurs and Arsenal are among Premier League teams to have been reported, were reported to have inquired about the possibility of signing him. 29 years of age, still a very good player, and that's why Bayern Munich are in the market considering Bradley Barcola, Nico Williams, Kaoru Mitoma, Rafael Leao, and Cody Gakpo as potential replacements for Leroy Sané if he does eventually leave the club, with the top priority being Bradley Barcola, Nico Williams coming in second place. Although his transfer fee is affordable, his wages remain a sticking point for all his suitors. That's Nico Williams, with Athletic Bilbao attempting to get him on a new contract and also increase his release clause. But according to Fabrizio Romano, Galatasaray are growing confident that they will sign Leroy Sané. They are waiting for the green light from the player. Then Kevin De Bruyne to Napoli, that deal is on. He will sign a 2-year contract with an option, I think, to extend for a further year. Medical and formal steps to follow. That's again according to Fabrizio Romano. Then which other player has been a hot take that we've not mentioned? Really. Excuse me. Dijad Petrovic will be left out of the Chelsea squad for the FIFA Club World Cup. Chelsea plan not to bring any players out on loan during the season. Apart from Andre Santos and Petrovic were both at Strasbourg. That's Chelsea's sister club in the French League One, where they also did sign a defender. They did recently sign a defender. I forget his name. Yes, but they also want to sign Emmanuel Emega from Strasbourg. So, anyways, those are some of the major deals that are really happening that we've been following up on in the last couple of days. And then Strasbourg are set to sign Matthias Amoguo from Chelsea. Plan already decided since January when deal got done. While Andre Santos left Strasbourg to be part of the Chelsea squad for the FIFA Club World Cup. We've spoken about that. Then Chelsea did pull out of the rest to sign. That's the AC, although negotiations will continue. I think FIFA Club World Cup for the 29-year-old French goalkeeper. That deal is on. Then Martin Batrina to Como is a here we go. They are signing the player from Dinamo Zagreb for about 18 million euros. That could rise up to about 25 in potential add-ons there. Excuse me. Then, of course, Rodrigo posted pictures of him in training at Real Madrid and said happy. He's happy there. I mean, it's a strong interest from the likes of Arsenal among a host of other Premier League clubs. Then Alexander Kolarov will be the new second coach at Inter as a main assistant to manager Christian Kivu. Remember, Christian Kivu was given a 2-year contract to be the next, Juventus manager. While Atlanta did appoint Ivan Jurisic there as their new manager, he did, get fired at Southampton after, failing to rescue them from relegation back in April. But also last season, he had been fired at Roma after just about 2 months in the role. So he's now at Inter Milan. Sorry, he's now at Atlanta, really, because Atlanta lost Gian Piero Gasperini, and then he has since gone to Roma. Anyways, guys, that's the gist of the conversation. It's been a pleasure having you here on the broadcast. Thank you so much for those all that did contribute to this morning's broadcast. Thank you so much, Peter Parker. Peter Parker, you asked us about when will Paul Pogba play. Now, Paul Pogba has an offer from AC Monaco to join them as a free agent, of course, but he had yet to accept that offer. We'll keep our ears on the ground for Paul Pogba and see if he does indeed make the move. But thank you so much for being a part of today's morning's broadcast. Thank you so much, Zero, for your generous contribution to today's debate and conversation. H Games, the Liverpool fan there, thank you so much as well. Do not, and February, thank you so much for being part of us today. Jamie Khan, thank you so much for being a part of this morning's podcast. And all the other contributors that did like the broadcast, those that were behind the scenes, they did not like, they did not comment. We do appreciate your efforts as well for being part of the broadcast. What I want to say is, before I sign out, is if you are interested in learning some digital skills, like web design, coding, cybersecurity, then do not hesitate to check out our friends at Ebo State, based in Kampala, based in Kansanga, Kampala. They do offer online and in-person training sessions as well as career guidance, and do help their trainees to find jobs in the dynamic digital world in the post training period. So do check them out. I'll leave the link to their website down in the description. You do qualify for a 5% discount if you do follow that link. And then lastly, do not hesitate to check out all our content under the short section, under the video section. We did explain why the deal for Benjamin Sesko to Arsenal is delaying. We'll be looking to do more content in the course of the day. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you in the evening or at night for the night's broadcast. Otherwise, bye-bye, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day.